Why do we have dogs? It is kind of an easy question, right? They're cute, they keep us company, because dogs are our friends. Alright, but what is our relationship with dogs really? They're not like children, obviously, at least by law. So, what are they? If you think about it, dogs are pretty much our slaves, our companion slaves. I know, said this way it sounds very harsh. But in the end I decided to still share my thinking, so here it is. Since my dog died a couple years ago, I've been feeling a bit weirded out when looking at other people's dogs, realizing that they're not free. So I wondered, if they're not free, are they slaves? According to Encyclopedia Britannica, slavery is a condition in which one human being was owned by another. First of all, why is this definition in the past tense? We all know that slavery is still a thing today, sadly. Let's take a look at another definition as well. According to Cambridge Dictionary, slavery is the condition of being legally owned by someone else and forced to work or obey them. Alright, dogs are not human, but you might probably agree with me when I say that slavery can totally happen across species. Take Star Wars for example. Anakin and his mom were both slaves of Watto. If you look on the Star Wars fandom page, you can find a pretty neat and more encompassing definition of slavery. According to Star Wars, slavery was a practice and institution where sentient beings were bought, sold, and held as property of other sentient beings. We humans, dogs, and other animals with a centralized nervous system can all be categorized as sentient beings since we all have the ability to perceive and feel. Similarly, if machines became fully sentient and put us all on leashes, wouldn't you say that machines are enslaving humans? Or, if we switched positions with dogs owning us as we own them, wouldn't you say that dogs are enslaving humans? So, let's assume we all agree on the Star Wars definition. Since dogs are perfectly sentient, they may be considered our slaves. Let that sink in for a second. Let's get back to Encyclopedia Britannica. Slavery was a form of dependent labor performed by a non-family member. The slave was deprived of personal liberty and the right to move about geographically as he desired. There were likely to be limits on his capacity to make choices with regards to his occupation and sexual partners as well. Slavery was usually, but not always, involuntary. If not all of these characterizations in their most restrictive forms applied to a slave, the slave regime in that place is likely to be characterized as mild. If almost all of them did, then it ordinarily would be characterized as severe. In summary, dogs are sentient beings. They are totally our property. They are deprived of their personal liberty and the right to move about geographically as they please. They may be expected to work for us or at least obey us. Only a few dogs nowadays are expected to carry out some kind of labor, like guard dogs or farm dogs. But all of them at some level are expected to obey us. In fact, dog training is often called obedience training. And the last point, their condition is involuntary. Yes and no. In most cases, we are the ones choosing the dog we're going to adopt or buy, not the other way around. It doesn't matter if they want to come home with us. Once bought or adopted, they just will. But aren't they voluntarily staying with us even when we let them off the leash? It is hard to assume that they can voluntarily choose to stay by our side. After all, they're naturally determined to follow a pack leader, and we have reinforced that trait through centuries of selected breeding and obedience training. On the other hand, some zoologists theorize that wolves may have become voluntarily dependent on humans around 30,000 years ago. Wolves may have started approaching hunter-gatherer camps in search of food. As millennia went by, these wolves may have slowly become some kind of village dogs, which roamed freely, did not live in specific people's homes, and were pretty much just hanging around the camp, scrounging for food. This theory is opposed by another school of thought, according to which humans may have actively started domesticating dogs in ancient times. In any case, it is still not clear if dogs really wanted to go from this to this. In general, it cannot be denied that we have great power over our dogs. We provide them with food, shelter, medicine, and lots of other good stuff that they cannot just get on their own. But we could easily decide not to cure them if they get cancer, or not to give them the usual treat if they poop on our living room carpet. We can close doors and gates and decide that they should never get out unless on a leash and under our supervision. Letting them just leave wouldn't be a great idea anyway, since the world outside looks like this, or this. So once you get a dog, its condition of slavery cannot be safely reversed by letting it just run away. In other words, freedom is usually not a viable option. So, since there are a few slavery points that dogs didn't score, we can conclude that dog slavery is a mild form of slavery after all. Let's all feel some mild relief now. Wait a minute, but we love our dogs. What kind of slavery are you talking about? Sure, I love dogs too. They're awesome. But do you think that our love for them overrules the fact that we restrict their freedom, own them, and so on? Let's leave this question for open discussion. My opinion is that love is not a fix for all these slavery points. So I'll continue with the assumption that dogs are slaves. Beloved, affectionate, slaves. What about other pets, you may ask? Cats, birds, hamsters, and so on are all pretty much living under the same mild conditions of slavery as house dogs. Fish may actually get extra slavery points since we mostly keep them just for display. We don't really consider them our friends. Sorry, fish. With all that said, we could categorize pets as our privileged slaves. Privileged because they're having a blast in comparison with full slavery points here, huh? Since differently from pets, they're forced to work for us. The worst kind of labor, exploitation of their bodies with final violent death. And their condition can definitely be considered involuntary. More precisely, according to Encyclopedia Britannica's definition, domesticated animals such as cows, pigs, chickens, and so on are subjects to severe slavery. Therefore, we humans are part of a system based on slavery. But how did we get here? Here's how it most likely went down. Sometime in human history, we have looked at the ancient versions of cows, dogs, pigs, and cats and asked ourselves, can we use them? If the answer was kinda, we would do our best to select and cross them so that they would eventually genetically match our ideals of a usable animal. So we made strong dogs, cute dogs, slim dogs, overly furry dogs. We made cows that would give us higher quantities of milk and pigs that would give us the best quality bacon. And so on and so forth. As time went by, we bred and utilized animals in higher and higher numbers. These days, numbers have reached incredible levels. So incredible that now in Denmark there are more pigs than people, and on a planetary level, livestock outnumbers mammals and birds tenfold. Quite many are the uses that we came up with for the animals that we managed to domesticate. So far, the real slaves have provided us with food, clothing, entertainment, transportation, and much more. The animals that we cannot tame in a profitable or efficient way, we still try to get some benefit out of. Throughout history, we have been asking variations of, can we use them when relating to wild animals as well? We've been asking questions like, do they taste good? Yes. Let's hunt them. Let's harvest them from the oceans. Can they be used as medicine? Yeah. Let's cut their horns and fins off. Let's peel their skin. Do they look good as furniture? Yes. Let's walk on them. Let's hang them to the wall. Do they look good as clothing? let us wear them. Can we experiment on them? Yes, let's do science on them. Can they be sold for a lot of money? Yep, let's sell them on the black market. If the answer to these categories of questions is no, we ask other kinds of questions such as, do they obstacle human activity?
Remove, eliminate, annihilate.
Do they just exist without bothering or benefiting us? Let them be. AKA, let them probably die from the negative externalities of our activities. And after threatening with extinction over 40% of insect species, we realized, oops, we actually need insects. Studies have shown that without them we might be in quite a lot of trouble. Let's protect them, I guess? If their protection is not at odds with our current activities. Otherwise,
let them die.
What about wildlife conservation programs like WWF and so on? Of course, things are not black or white. We sometimes look at animals and just want them to exist free and happy in their natural habitats, because that's how it should be. Unfortunately, numbers show that this desire is still not yet strong enough to stop the 6th mass extinction. The overall picture is quite clear. We reduced a whole lot of animals to slavery, but we don't want to be confronted with that fact. We prefer to think of some of them as companions and friends, and others as freely usable and abusable natural resources. How do we make sense of this? Is humankind naturally programmed to impose its domination on all other animals? Are we the apex predator gone rogue and infesting every habitat? What is the role of evolution in our relationship to the animal world? Also, on the moral side, do our superior cognitive abilities justify our behavior towards other animals? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and until next time.